All right, welcome to this episode of Boulder Builders show. Today, I'm so glad to have my friend Ben Kugel to come to the show. We're going to talk about real estate investment. Ben has been investing in properties particularly in mountain properties in Colorado, in Coal Creek Canyon. And I got to know Ben through kids connections. Ben sent his kids to my wife's daycare and private school. Yeah, so I'm so excited to have a cool conversation with you today.
Yeah, thanks. Me too. Sounds good.
Yeah, so would you like to share a little bit of your background, your family, where you born, where you grew up?
Sure.
How you made it to Colorado, how you get to this real estate investment journey.
Yeah, so a Californian originally from Santa Rosa, California, and so grew up there, went to school at UC Davis, which is kind of outside Sacramento, and got a degree in managerial economics, which is kind of a business econ sort of degree.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's a somewhat unique degree to UC Davis. It's part of the ag school there, and through Davis is how I met Jean, my wife. We were both respective presidents of our UC ski clubs. I was the president of the UC Davis ski club, and she was president of the Cal Berkeley ski club. And those clubs, we run a lot of collaborative trips together. And so we met through doing that. And then, so that's kind of what ended up dragging me to Colorado.
I was about to say that.
Yeah, the skiing thing definitely was that's sort of what introduced me to Colorado, and then got her master's in engineering at CU in Boulder. And so that's what brought us out here. And initially we kind of started with a 5-year plan.
Yeah.
We're going to move out here, see how we like it, do the Colorado mountain thing for a while, and then back to California after 5 years. How long have we been here? 16 years later, we're still in Colorado. So
you're the one of the most beautiful places in the world.
Yeah, so we kind of put down roots here and have definitely made Colorado home.
Cool. So how did you start your real estate journey?
So it was definitely influenced by my folks. They were always real estate investors, landlords growing up. My dad was a remodeling contractor, general contractor, and so he would do work for clients and then work on his properties. He always had, 4 or 5 rentals in the Santa Rosa area, and they very much did the kind of the 1031 model. Bought places, gradually, rented them out, gradually fixed them up, traded them up into nicer and nicer properties, and created a halfway decent real estate portfolio that way. And so that was kind of my introduction to it all. And that kind of, I had a lot of experience with my dad in the construction industry, and that's kind of what I ended up moving towards in Colorado. And so eventually, worked for a couple of construction companies out here. Eventually got my contractor's license, and have been doing the self-employed contractor thing since 2015 now. So I've been doing that for a little while, and then that kind of lended itself to the sort of real estate investing that I've gotten into now.
I was, I've been interested in the construction business as well. I could invest into real estate. I was considering a license, general contracting. How long would that take?
It really goes hand in hand, yeah. The licensing thing is actually relatively straightforward. It's basically a test, and then depending on the license, some of them require certain levels of experience, certain number of years of experience under another general contractor. Some of them require a certain number of projects of a certain caliber. My license is strictly residential, which is, for the sort of work I was doing, was what I needed, and is one of the more straightforward ones to get. It's basically a written test. To be honest, it's the sort of thing where you could buy the book, study for a while. You go in and you take the test at the same place as people who are taking the MCATs and nursing exams,
Right.
things like that.
Yeah, it's easier than graduating from college. Right?
Oh man, it's a piece of cake compared to that.
Cool. So how was your experience as a general contractor in Colorado?
I enjoyed it. So I worked for a number of general contractors, first as kind of a project lead, project manager sort of role. And I enjoyed that because they were larger companies and we were doing bigger projects and more involved projects. But then moving into the kind of self-employed general contractor thing, I liked that a lot, just being able to pull all the levers myself, being in charge of all the steps of the process and, working a little more directly with clients, and I ended up building a good relationship and had a nice stable of clients that, I could count on for a solid year's worth of work every year. Yeah. So I enjoyed it. I'm more doing self-funded stuff. So I'm not doing too many things for clients anymore. But while I was doing it, it was definitely a good gig.
I mean, they definitely prepare you to kind of invest in your own projects in Colorado.
Well, I did a lot of projects that kind of ran the gamut from, more kind of craftsman style custom woodworking to full remodels that, touched all the different trades and all the different aspects of residential construction. And so, the projects kind of, over the years that I was doing it, they had a lot of breadth to them. And so that lended itself well to kind of the stuff I'm doing now.
So what's your focus now?
I've kind of started leaning towards these self-funded projects, whether they're spec houses, ground up builds that either are something that we as a family move into ourselves and then eventually sell, basically fix and flips, and whether those are a direct flip, something that I buy, fix up and sell, or something that I would buy, fix up and rent out as either a short-term or long-term rental. Yeah, I've kind of started focusing on that stuff, specifically in the mountains a little more.
Cool. So how many rental or properties do you own now?
So right now we've got our primary residence, which was a house that I built in 2020.
Mhm.
It was a unique property that came on the market. Actually, no, that's not true. It didn't come on the market. It's kind of a funny probate thing, and found out about it through a real estate agent that we had sold another investment through. She came to me knowing that I kind of was into these not so straightforward properties. And so it was a house that it had burned, and so it was a house that needed to be scraped and was kind of a complex permitting process for this specific property. So that was one that we bought and built and moved into ourselves. And then right now I have two other properties that are kind of major remodel projects. One was a house that had been gutted by the previous owner, and he had sort of started on the rebuild, and through some kind of personal and financial issues of his, he had to drop the project. And so I bought that from him and kind of picked that up partway into the remodel process. And then the other one is a house that we just closed on that was a major water damage situation, and it had a bunch of pipes break back in 2019. Those owners did some of the remediation of that, and then kind of let it sit like that until now. Similar thing, another project that was, a lot of different steps to it, and I think it proved overly expensive or overly complicated for them. And so, I've picked that one up and will kind of, jump into that remodel that has been partially started also.
Really, you are picking up a project that really has room to add value to.
Totally.
And that, that's kind of like a way to create wealth.
Yeah.
And I heard, a story from you, from other friends that does that has created significant amount of wealth.
Yeah.
So, but at the same time, you also, you're in this real estate market, in the States, we kind of still lack housing.
Sure.
Housing is still a issue. It's like 4 million units in short every year.
Sure.
So I see this is a great model.
It is. Well, and a lot of these projects are so rough that they're properties that probably wouldn't qualify for typical financing. And so it's a project and a house that most people wouldn't be able to get into anyways. Even if a DIYer wanted to come in and fix up this house, it would be they're very difficult houses for a bank to lend towards. And so, there a lot of these end up being properties that, buy like that and then fix up, relatively nice to the point where then a bank will finance them and can sell to more of a typical home buyer.
So you cannot finance while you're purchasing it, but you could refinance later on after asking about when the bank feel more comfortable about it.
Sure.
So by the time you purchase it, you have to have some reserves in order to make the purchase quickly.
Yeah.
I mean, also, per our previous conversation, that another reason, great factor that could help you to make purchase is that you really know the local market, even particularly where your current properties are.
Well, we've been in this kind of rural canyon where we live since 2011 now. And so we've been in the canyon a long time. We know the area relatively well. And so when these, kind of distressed, tricky properties pop up, it's easy to jump on them if they are a good deal and they're a worthwhile investment. Yeah. And I've been doing a lot of work up in the mountains for a lot of years now on our stuff and for clients. And so I've already run into a lot of the tricky pitfalls that mountain properties have. There's a lot of places with funky foundations and septic issues and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And so, showing up to a place that needs a lot of work and the average, contractor coming from Denver or something might see it as just a giant headache and too many question marks and too many unknowns. I feel like I've kind of answered a lot of those questions already with previous projects in the area.
Right. You have the knowledge of this area already.
Yeah. And so it makes it a little easier to jump into some of this stuff with a little more confidence.
Yeah. The amazing thing about real estate market is that, like a national market, right? It's different state. Each state is so different. And even from Denver to Coal Creek Canyon, it's different too. From Denver to Boulder, they're different too.
I manage my dad still owns a handful of properties and I manage all of those for him at this point. And he has a couple in the canyon. He has some in Arvada. He has 2 condos in Arvada, and he has a house back in California still. And all of them are completely different markets.
Right.
Even the mountain properties versus the stuff in Arvada, they're 25-minute drive apart.
Right.
And even those are very, very different.
Yeah. The model that could work could be, just requires totally different strategies to make it work.
Yeah.
Cool. So what's your goals for your real estate investment?
I would like to get to a point where, I have basically, a stable of investments that brings in enough passive income that I can easily fund things. We've got 3 kids, so they're
awesome.
Yeah, that's, and basically kind of create an investment portfolio that sort of makes life moving forward with a big family a little easier and a little less stressful.
Yeah.
On the financial side, at least.
Yeah, just a little on the side. Some parents in the States believe that, it's not really right or wrong. So some parents really feel like their kids need to pay for their own, college and tuition or master's degree or whatever, right? And some parents, especially some Chinese parents, the parents in China or Chinese parents in the States, they normally pay for their kids, college at least, right?
So I had an agreement with my dad. Well, when I was getting ready to go to college, he basically told me he had an agreement with his dad. It was like, I'll pay for your college, but you have to pay for your kids' college. And my dad did the same thing for me. I'll pay for you to go to school, but when you have kids, that means you have to pay for their college, which I felt like that made a lot of sense. When my kids are in college, I'll be in my 40s and I'll be a lot better prepared to, foot that bill than I was when I was 19 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And, that helped me a lot starting my kind of real estate investing journey, being able to get out of college without this big student loan debt bill. And, so he was able to do that for me. And so that's kind of, it gave me this jump of investing, and it'll make it that much easier for me to then pay for my kids' school.
Yeah. So a little bit my story on my end. So I'm from China originally. The Chinese parents normally pay for their kids' college expenses, tuition, like all the expenses. And then, so coming to this, I came to the States for a graduate of an MBA program first. So that cost about like almost a 1 million RMB to my dad, to my parents. So my parents definitely don't mind. They sacrifice a lot to send me to the States to have the best education possible.
Sure.
And so for those 2 years, it cost them about 1 million RMB. So which is almost like $1 million to a United States, to a U.S. parents by the purchasing power. So that's a huge amount of money.
Yeah, that's
he could buy, 1 or 2 houses.
Change.
Yeah, but they totally really valued my opportunity to get the education here, and through that, I could potentially find a job here, immigrant here. So they totally thought that was worth it for their sacrifice.
Sure.
That's kind of how a lot of typical Chinese parents, value education.
Yeah, no, I think it makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah. So speaking of education, how do you feel like, your educational background helped you to be who you are and what you're doing today?
Yeah, that's a good question. If nothing else, it kind of gave me, a head start on just kind of understanding how the world works in a financial sense, and just gave me, I don't really feel like, even though I did get an econ degree, I don't really feel like I left school like really understanding how to invest and being an economist, what I wanted to invest in, how I wanted to go about it. But it gave me kind of the lingo and the tools to learn all that stuff a lot more easily, and kind of understand what I needed to do, actually, learn what I was doing in that sort of sense.
Part of the education we talk about, is typical education. You go to school, go to get a degree, go graduate from high school, go to college and graduate. You learn from those knowledge from books, from classrooms, from your classmates.
Sure.
Also, in the States, people here value education in a way so much into like your hands-on learning experience. You just figured out, right? Especially, in terms of entrepreneurship.
Sure.
Figured out the way, where to invest into real estate. And you also, learn from a lot of, from your dad, from family members.
Yeah.
Kind of those are hands-on education that help you grow fast, right?
Well, and, my kind of college experience, I feel like I gained just as much as I did from like my classes, and the degree that I got. I feel like I gained just as much from just being around other intelligent, motivated people, and some of the kind of extracurricular things that you get exposed to in college. Running a big ski club, which was its own little obscure business in itself, things like that.
Yeah, that kind of prepare you a little bit of how to, make an organization work.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. So, speaking of, economics, yesterday, so the Fed just dropped, rate, right?
Yeah.
50 points. How do you see that and affecting a real estate investment or economy?
At least as far as how it affects me, I think it's definitely a positive step. I was talking with my real estate agent just the other day, and he was feeling like things were picking up, offers were picking up, even with the announcements that rates were going to drop. And so, as someone who's trying to make their money by buying and selling houses, anything that kind of, kickstarts that real estate market a little bit is certainly doesn't hurt. The real estate market here has been, it's been very, very strong. It's been a little crazy for the past 4 or 5 years, but it has definitely slowed down a little bit in the past couple of years, at least as far as how quickly things sell and how long things stay on the market, stuff like that. And so a rate drop, I think, will definitely help pick that up a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, some of my other friends who, contractors, real estate investor, they're so looking forward to it. Like a month ago.
People got kind of used to, 3% mortgages. That I think there's a lot of people who have been sitting on their hands a little bit, waiting for rates to drop a little bit before they, move or buy a first house or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, some of my audience are from China.
Mm-hmm.
So, Chinese people have different opinions about where U.S. economy is. So what's your general idea of, U.S. economy being healthy, being strong, or having a recession, financial crisis? Or what's your take?
I have always I'm not too sure.
Mm-hmm.
Stuff like that, I always kind of take the approach of, I'm relatively conservative with my investments, relatively conservative with my money. We definitely live below our means. And so I kind of take the approach of living a life and making financial decisions to where, me and my family, we're not going to be too affected or at least too in trouble no matter what happens.
Mm-hmm.
If there's a major downturn or some sort of recession, we're at a point where we're going to be, we'll be okay. And if things do great, that's nice, but kind of, trying to not be too exposed so that, big changes in the world economy doesn't affect us too much. And that's kind of how I view that sort of stuff.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. So, so to my experience, my view as a person that immigrant to this country, I see this country, this country is not perfect, right? There's
Sure.
Systems need to be greater, but I also see this country created great political systems, balance of power, a social justice system compared to a lot of countries in the world.
Sure.
There's no justice. There's no people don't have freedom. And so when I come to this country, I see how freedom could, incentivize people to be innovative.
Sure.
That this country has generated so many great entrepreneurs, leading tech companies, financial companies, has great financial flourish. So I personally am really thankful for this country, and I feel like a lot of entrepreneurs, they could really benefit from the opportunities here. I see amazing, abundant opportunities for people to grow, to succeed.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I've never experienced the other side. It is, it's totally a place that encourages the entrepreneur and the self-starter and the people with the unique ideas.
Mm-hmm. Right. So let's talk about another investment I'm working on.
Sure. Yeah.
And since you're involved as well, so I raised capital for the oil and gas fund with Aspen Funds, and it's great. It's been doing great, exceeding cash flow, exceeding expectations. Investors like you getting distributions like a year sooner than planned.
Yeah.
Right. So my experience with you, talking with you, sharing with you about this investment, and you seem like quickly made your decision to jump into this investment.
Yeah.
So sometimes, I was thinking, what made you feel comfortable about such an investment?
So I felt like with that is some of it was just some fortunate timing. Had been, obviously I'm very, very real estate heavy. I understand that market very well and am very comfortable there. I also know that, diversification is an important part of any investment portfolio. And you approached me with a proposal for your energy fund. I'd been looking for a place to diversify a little bit. And to be honest, it felt like, obviously it's a investment in oil and gas, but from my perspective, it's almost more of an investment in you, because I don't really have, I have a cursory understanding of the oil and gas industry, but I'm by no means an expert. And, I felt like you and your firm did have a level of experience and understanding that I felt like I trusted. And felt more, less like me deciding to invest. It's like, all right, I have this chunk of money. I want to invest in something. What should it be? Yeah, oil and gas. It wasn't so much that. It was more like, what should I invest it in? Justin and the guys he works with, they seem to know what they're talking about, and they seem to know what they're doing. I'm going to put some trust in these guys and invest that way.
Kind of like a bet on the horse, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, and I think there's some validity to staying in your lane. So I can make my own decisions in the real estate world, and when I want to invest in something else, you find the person who actually understands that, and kind of follow their guidance rather than trying to reinvent the wheel and figure it all out yourself.
Yeah, for me, kind of similar, this decision-making process of jumping to this project, raising capital, being one of the GPs of the whole project, working with Aspen funds, right? Looking their track record. They never lost money for the 10 years, managing our partner, managing $2 million like 10 years ago, now it's 300 million plus. So never lost money. Yeah. And always pay distribution on time.
Yeah, it was a confidence inspiring track record for sure.
Right. Also, it's I will always thought about real estate as well. So I spent about a week to understand, as much as possible about oil and gas. So diversification is a great blessing actually.
Sure.
Yeah. Another investor actually of mine, they invest heavily in solar and real estate. And now, and then he decided to invest heavily in our fund as well.
Sure.
So that's a great way to kind of like mitigate the risks.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. So let's switch gear a little bit to talk a little bit about your family and share with us a little bit about your family.
Yeah. So my wife is Jean, and we've got 3 kids: Zach, Samantha, and Ezra. Yeah, they're 8, 4, and 2. Have all in various stages and times been at Courtney's school. What day is today? Is today Thursday?
Yes, Thursday, yeah.
Yeah, Thursday. So Sam and Ezra are there right now. And Zach's he's in 3rd grade at the little local elementary school in the canyon. Yeah, they're great. They're 3 little firecrackers that definitely keep us busy.
Yeah. It's really great to have them.
They're awesome. And they love they love being at your guys' place too.
Thank you, appreciate it. Yeah. So how did you and your wife met in the ski club? The different college? Yeah. Cool. So when did you guys get married?
Let's see, we got married in 2012. Our 12-year anniversary is actually on Sunday. Yeah, so we've been together a while. Jean's great. She's very, supportive of all my, random projects, big and small, of which the list keeps growing and growing. Yeah, she's a geotechnical engineer, so she works for a company out of Golden. That she was at a much larger company for a long time, about 12 years. And just moved to a new company last year that she's really excited about. Yeah, so I build houses and she makes big things out of dirt.
That's a great team.
Yeah. Yeah.
So other than, her supporting you, what's the major thing that you love about her?
Boy, she is, she loves the outdoors. She's very athletic. She's into anything, any sort of adventure that I can wrangle her and the kids to go on. Yeah, she's just up for anything. We're always taking the kids on camping trips and rafting trips and, mountain bike rides and things like that. And and she's just always game. So she's a supportive partner but also a fun partner to have.
Yeah, for sure. That's so great to see amazing families, because I really believe in, family as the very foundational units.
Definitely, yeah. Yeah.
Cool. So what are your dreams for your family, for your kids, and for you and your wife?
That's a good question. And it's at this stage with young kids, has a demanding job. I have a lot of projects going on. It can be easy to focus on that and not really think about what your trying to achieve, for 10 years down the road. And so it isn't something that I necessarily put as much thought into as I should, I feel like. But I mean, the goal is to raise happy, well-adjusted kids and, just kind of give them as much opportunity as I can for a happy, interesting life.
Yeah, you have goals for, each season.
Yeah. I feel like both my parents and Jean's parents did kind of a nice job preparing all their kids for the world and to be interesting people. Mm-hmm. And so kind of just following their models a little bit and trying to give the same thing to my kids.
Cool. Another question I actually forgot to ask you.
Mm-hmm.
So, if you could tell, say, like you yourself many years ago, right?
Sure.
Or just right out of college, from now, look at, the you back then, what would you tell the Ben 20 years ago?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know. I mean, besides leverage as much money as you can in 2012 and buy as much property as you possibly can.
We wish we knew, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I've always been a little more on the kind of the cash model a little bit. The old Dave Ramsey way of doing things.
Okay.
But if you have a crystal ball and you could you really know that that things are going to be good for a certain amount of time, being a little riskier.
It would take more risks.
I feel like I've taken very little risk as far as my investments go.
Mm-hmm.
And if I had been willing to be riskier a decade ago, would be in a slightly different position than I am now. Not that there's anything wrong with the position I'm in now, but I guess, I don't know. I feel like I'm pretty happy with the route my life has gone. And so I'm not sure there's too much I would want to try and change.
Yeah. Anything else to wrap up? Any advice to, investors or new investors, particularly maybe in real estate, selling in the States? What advice would you give them?
I mean, I guess I feel like my success has come from my level of knowledge and experience.
Mm-hmm.
And so I guess my advice would be, if you're not in a position that you have, a decade of experience, or have, grew up in a family, so you were kind of steeped in it as you grew up, find that experience in other people and kind of, find those people who have done it and try and glean some of that information from them. Because, a conversation like this, you can learn so much more than you can, reading any how-to book. Not that there's anything wrong with those. You can, gain a lot of information from that stuff, but trying to find the people who have that experience and trying to learn from them would definitely be my recommendation.
Yeah. So I'm glad that you started kind of early, right?
Yeah.
This journey. But what if, some people say if that's too late to start, kind of like an investment journey, right? What would you tell them?
I mean, I don't know. It's not too late by any means, I would say. In a way, Jean and I started early. We bought our first house when I was 23, I think. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, I don't really feel like I've started my kind of investment journey in earnest until, really 3 or 4 years ago. So, yeah, I think the important thing is to start. And, yeah.
Cool. Another question before we, finish this recording. Mm-hmm. So share with us a person or a moment in your life, or a belief or a book you read that, kind of a pivot moment that changed your life in a positive way.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I had told, I had mentioned this before, but I feel like a big one for me was just that, honestly, the conversation I had with my dad before starting school, and just kind of instilling that idea of, I'm willing to give you this opportunity as long as you're willing to pass that opportunity on to your kids.
Kind of like a pay it forward.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is, the pay it forward thing. And I feel like that conversation there kind of shapes a lot of how I have kind of structured, how I want to live my life as far career-wise and as far as financial goals and things like that go. Having this kind of long-term perspective and kind of the goal, not so much being for gain for me, but setting up, this scenario for my kids to succeed. And in doing so, obviously, there's benefits for me too, but having that kind of long-term goal of, setting up a life for my kids to succeed, has sort of made all these other things fall into place.
Supporting them, do whatever you can to provide them the best opportunities possible.
Provide them the best opportunities, and with that kind of creates its own little timeline as far as having stable structure when they're young, and in kind of those formative years, and they're going to school. And then having some kind of long-term goals that are a little more financially oriented as far as like paying for things like college and stuff like that.
Yeah. So I just want to add a little bit, still from my story,
Sure.
It's kind of typical for, a lot of Chinese parents, they really value education, right? That brings more opportunities for careers for the kids.
Sure.
But my parents did extra miles to do that. They did extra sacrifice.
Sure.
I mean, they made more money than regular people in China that they could have those reserved for me to send me to the States. But that's still a huge amount of money. They did so much sacrifice. They didn't travel much. They didn't spend any money that's not necessary. And they would rather save $1, but they don't mind spending $1 million to send me to the States.
Yeah.
Just to try to get me the best opportunity.
Yeah.
Could have. So they did really a lot. And my dad hearing this message, I really appreciate that. Yeah. So that make me kind of like what you're feeling, since that's what my parents did to me, that's just more motivating me to do more for my kids.
Sure.
Next generation, to be the best support possible. They'd like to see them succeed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're definitely big motivators.
Cool. It's been such an awesome conversation with you.
Yeah, thanks for having me here. It's been great.
Do you need anybody, if there's anything like investment, whatever, to find you at this moment?
Right now I can't say I do have anything to plug.
Yeah.
With my strategy, I kind of like keeping everything in house.
Yeah.
Partially so I don't have anyone to report to.
Yeah.
Which is nice. I'm, I'm stay-at-home dad, 3 days a week when the kids aren't at Courtney's. And so my timelines are a lot longer and a lot more stretched out. And so it's nice to kind of just, keep everything a little more contained.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, who knows? Maybe, if one day you take on some big projects, if there's, needs to raise capital, whatever, we'll put the company information on the link.
Yeah. Put me out there.
Cool. Yeah. Thank you so much again.
Thank you.
Yeah.